Hey everybody! Today I want to tell you a story about a recent trip I took that really made me reflect on the reasons why we learn foreign languages, and in particular, it made me think about the question, is it worth it to study a language just for a vacation? And please stick around till the end because I'm going to be announcing my first little language challenge of 2025, and I would really love for you to join me. So grab yourself a cup of coffee and get cozy because I'm going to take you on a brief little trip to the Netherlands. Last week, I went to Amsterdam, and I have to say, I absolutely loved it. It was so pretty. We stayed in a neighborhood near the Museum Square, which was delightful, and it was far less crowded than I expected. I've only been on one proper holiday in the last 11 years, so it was just so nice being somewhere just to be there. I loved wandering around the beautiful streets. I've been working really hard studying drawing lately, and during the trip I practiced some life sketching for the first time, which was really fun. And of course, we went to a handful of museums, which were all great. I think finally seeing the Van Gogh Museum was a really special highlight for me. I also practiced some photography on the trip. I have to say, I'm feeling pretty rusty and not very confident in my photography right now, but I think I still got a few pretty nice shots. Somehow I managed to not get any footage of me on the trip, but we did get a few photographs. This is me looking cool for approximately 1 second, and this is how I normally look most of the time. But one of the biggest surprises for me personally on this trip was how much I enjoyed the Dutch language. You see, exactly 10 years ago, I actually spoke Dutch pretty conversationally, but I had learned it very fast in a hurry, and after a brief adventure in a small Dutch town, which is a story for another day, I never spoke Dutch again. And I think I forgot it just as fast as I learned it. And I've also learned German and Swedish since then, which both seem to occupy the same space in my brain as Dutch. So by the time I arrived in Amsterdam, it was completely gone. I had to look up how to say thank you. I couldn't even come up with that. And this was actually my first time in about 11 years going to a place where I could not already speak the language pretty comfortably. And it felt kind of weird, but it was also a really fascinating experience. I didn't spend any time actually studying Dutch on the trip, but just hearing it all around me each day and just having it kind of wash over me, so many small little phrases came back. Like when people would give me a cup of coffee and say, alsjeblieft, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember that. And I would ask people at cafes like, hey, how do you say this or that? And by the end of the 4 days, I was able to at least say good morning, hello, how are you? And wish someone a nice day in Dutch, which sounds so simple, but I was honestly amazed by just how much joy and how many smiles and how many delightful but short interactions that created. Just those few phrases, and probably my ridiculous enthusiasm and happiness that I have helps. You know, I've always been interested in learning languages to go really, really deep and to be able to converse freely and colloquially and to have wonderful conversations. I've been interested in reading books or watching TV shows and movies in the target language. And all of those things take an enormous amount of time. And so I think I've always felt really aware, and I've always thought very carefully about the burden and the long-term commitment of adding any new languages. And so when I went to Serbia 11 years ago for the Polyglot Conference, I didn't learn any Serbian for that trip because I didn't really see the point if I was only going to be there for a few short days. But I had such a wonderful time in Amsterdam. I loved just observing the Dutch people, and I don't know if I'm just looking at it through my own lenses, but there just seemed to be this really lovely kind of lightheartedness, this sort of positivity in the air. I don't know, it was just a very nice experience, and just having Dutch wash over me and even just being able to pick up on some small things that were being said and remembering my short time in the Netherlands 10 years ago, it really just filled me with joy. It filled me with inspiration and motivation to spend some time studying Dutch again. And that's not because I plan to become super fluent in Dutch. Honestly, I have such a huge mountain of learning ahead of me with my animation studies. It's crazy. And I'm also learning Cantonese, so there's no way I can devote the time that would be needed to achieve those kind of results in Dutch in the near future. But that's okay. I don't feel any attachment to that. It actually happens I'm gonna be in the Netherlands again in July for about a week. And I think it would be so fun to just see if I could take those conversations a little bit further and just to see how well I could do. But I don't feel any pressure. I don't even have any expectations of what those conversations might look like. I just think it would be fun. And it would be a nice way to reframe the memories I have with Dutch and the Netherlands into a really positive thing that I can take forward into my life. And that brings me back to the question, is it worth it to study a language just for a holiday? And honestly, in the past, I might have said no. And I think that's because I've just seen so many people sign up for Duolingo and expect to be rather functional in a language within just a few weeks. And then I've seen so many people just feel so overwhelmed and disappointed when they find themselves completely lost in the most basic conversations, even just trying to order food or simple things like that, that we think are going to be easy if you haven't done this before. But it turns out that just takes a lot of time. There's an unlimited number of ways that local people will respond to even the most basic scenarios. Even just ordering dinner completely in a new language, it takes quite a lot of skill because they're not going to speak in the highly scripted and predictable way that our textbooks and our apps create to help us learn. And the better your pronunciation is, the better you sound, the faster those responses are going to be, and the more varied they're going to be. And I guess it just breaks my heart to see people disappointed. And I've always tried so hard to be honest about language learning or anything I talk about on my channel. And so I think I've just been hesitant to talk about this type of language learning before. But after my trip to Amsterdam, honestly, I think my opinion is yes, it is totally worth it to study a new language for the purposes of a trip. But I just think it's important to calibrate our expectations, because if we go to a new place and we understand like what we may or may not be able to do, depending on how long you've spent studying the language, then I think rather than being a disappointing and discouraging experience, I think it can be a wonderful experience that perhaps fills you with joy and newfound motivation to continue learning that language after you get home. Maybe you'll find yourself, as I have done many times, falling in love with this new world that opens up to you. And you may find that you end up going back to that place again and again in your life. Or maybe not. And I think that's totally okay as well. I think especially the way the world is right now, at least for me, simply collecting new human experiences, these kind of delightful interactions that happen when you just make an effort. I think having those moments, especially on a trip in a new place, it makes it all so much better. You know, this trip to Amsterdam was really augmented by these brief little interactions and the overall experience, just like enjoying hearing Dutch all around me, even if I could barely understand what was going on. So I think as long as the effort you put in roughly matches what you actually get out of it, and if your expectations are aligned, then I think it's really, really worth it. And I think I would encourage anybody to give it a try. But if you want to have those deeper conversations, if you want to be able to actually function and order your food or your coffees in that language, just be aware you're going to need a little bit more time, in my opinion. I want to set you up for success. I don't want people to be disappointed when they see someone online who says they learned, Spanish in a week. Speaking of learning new skills, I mentioned earlier that I've been spending a ton of time learning various new things, whether it's drawing, animation, or perhaps photography for an upcoming trip. Today's video sponsor, Skillshare, is an amazing place to learn pretty much anything you can imagine online. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives with thousands of classes available. I recently took a class by Gio Vescovi called Creative Drawing Challenge, 10 exercises to get inspired. This class is designed to get you out of your comfort zone and exercise and stretch your creativity in a super relaxing way. I've been working so hard lately on improving my drawing skills as part of my journey to becoming a hand-drawn 2D animator, but I have to tell you, sometimes it really does get overwhelming because there is just so much to learn when it comes to drawing for animation. And the thing I loved about this class is just how cozy and relaxed the teacher is. Gio really creates this comforting atmosphere where you just feel completely safe and free to draw whatever comes out of you during the exercises without judgment or stress. I also really liked the variety of exercises. I've gotten so used to complex figure drawing, anatomy, and perspective studies that it was just really refreshing to take a pause and allow my creativity to flow freely in such a fun, relaxing way. The first 500 people to use my link in the description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. So get started today. Thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. So with all that being said, I have decided I would like to take all that joy and inspiration I have after my trip, and over the next few weeks, I would like to spend a little bit of time studying Dutch again. And then I'm gonna go on Journaly and I'm gonna write a post in Dutch all about my trip to Amsterdam. In case some of you are not familiar, Journaly is a foreign language journaling platform that I built, and it's a place where you can write posts in languages that you're learning and get feedback and discussion from native speakers or the rest of the community. I would absolutely love it if you guys could join me in this little challenge. Write a post in a language that you are learning about your most recent trip, or perhaps in the language of the country where you went. It doesn't matter what your level is. This is just about having fun, expressing yourself in that language, and having human connections on Journaly where we can actually just encourage and help each other without judgment. And it's a really, really nice space to just write and build new friendships in the languages that you're learning. Please use the topic YouTube Challenge 01 in your post so that we can all easily find each other who are participating in this challenge, and just try to help each other, right? Like, look for posts in a language that you speak, and if you could just spend a few minutes giving somebody corrections, that would be amazing. And as a pro tip, we recently built a couple of really awesome features on Journaly. One of them is @mentioning, so you can now directly tag people in your responses and your comments. And we also spent 5 months building this really amazing suggestion feature. So all you have to do is click on Insert Suggestion and just edit the text inside of the backticks. And after you publish the comment, we format it beautifully, and it just makes it really clear and digestible for the author exactly what your suggestion is. And it makes it really easy for you as the commenter to just kind of go through and spend more time on crafting your suggestions rather than rewriting what was already there. So please do join me in this challenge. I have barely talked about Journaly for the last 2.5 years, and I really would like to start doing more community challenges together. And if you like this kind of challenge, let me know. We can do more of them together. And I plan to make a video here on YouTube after I'm done, where I'll share my experience, how it went, and I'll share the post that I wrote in Dutch. If you enjoyed this video, please do consider subscribing so you don't miss any of my new ones. I do want to tell you that on Patreon, I have just restarted the Secret Podcast, and if you go there now, you can find episode 1 of season 2, as well as all the other episodes from season 1. There's a super cozy series of vlogs I've done, diaries, free downloads. There's so much stuff from the last 6 years that I've been making, and you get it on day 1 if you sign up. So I would love for you to join our super cozy Patreon family. And for everybody else, I'll see you back here very soon.